Fresh off victory number 35, the Edmonton Oilers return home for a big week. Not only a 3-game homestand, but with the NHL's trade deadline looming around the corner, which, by the way, is on Friday, March 7 at 3 p.m. Eastern. We lean on a pair of voices of your Edmonton Oilers in Bob Stauffer and Jack Michaels. Bob, what's your pulse on the team right now?
Well, I think there's going to be an effort, there's no question, for Edmonton to, upgrade their roster. But there is a complication, and that complication is the status of Evander Kane and his potential return. The Oilers have created a mechanism in which if Evander's ready before the end of the regular season, that they can activate him. But theoretically, if he were not to be ready, as today we found out with Bill Zito and Matthew Tkachuk, until the playoffs, that changes the entire complexion and makeup of what they might be able to do at the deadline. All that being said, I do expect the Edmonton Oilers to try to add a little bit of size into their bottom six. I think we've seen enough of the Oilers team to know this year that they'll probably add a defenseman, a depth left shot defenseman, and they'll probably add a little bit of size. I don't think there's a big play to go get a top six forward. But again, a lot of it is dependent upon Evander.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you, Bob, because if Evander Kane does come back in any form in the regular season, then anything at the deadline basically becomes a dollar in, dollar out, where you have to peel someone off the roster. So they must probably have an answer in the next 48 hours, or they're really powerless to do much at the deadline. Is that an accurate read? If there's still a significant chance he could play games before the end of the regular season, what options do they have at the deadline?
You're 100%. I mean, it really comes down to that. Any deal that they make, if there's a belief that Kane will play before the end of the regular season, has to be money in, money out. It likely means that you're going to have to quarter whatever player you get, which means you're doing that through either a pick or prospect combination. And I don't envision the Oilers being in this position next year. I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't think Edmonton will go quite to the cap next season, but we're worried about the next week. We're not worried about next season.
Yeah, and obviously with the looming contract extension of Connor McDavid, that also certainly plays a factor in all of this as the Oilers continue to look long-term. And one comment on Evander Kane, of course, if he does return with the Edmonton Oilers, the player says he has a lot to prove with this organization
he's
as well.
He's playing for another contract, right? Like, he's got another year left in his deal, but he is playing for another contract. So it's going to be intriguing to watch how this all plays out.
Well, and the other thing is, what type of Evander Kane would the Oilers be getting? If they're able to activate him and get him into some regular season games and get him up to speed, in my opinion, Tony, you've got a far greater chance of potentially having a 2022 version of Evander Kane. Quite frankly, that injury that he suffered in Tampa, it was a significant one, and it's not the player's fault. It's a significant injury, and you wonder whether he's been the same guy since. I would suggest to you he is not, and that means polish and touch around the net. Forget the physical presence. We know he can bring that, but quite frankly, Evander Kane needs to score for the Edmonton Oilers to have another weapon in that top six that's a power forward, that's more than just, functional toughness out there. So it's absolutely vital that those answers are, forthcoming in the next 72 hours, because if you don't have them available for the regular season, I think it's unrealistic to think he's going to parachute in for the playoffs. Even if you get a really good player at the deadline, it's unrealistic to think he's going to parachute in for the playoffs and all of a sudden be this 22 version of Evander Kane. He's going to need time to get up to speed. Time to get up to speed means, in this case, another lengthy playoff run. Now, that's possible. But if you're factoring in what Evander Kane's impact will be on this team, I think you have to look at regular season games first, because it is tough to weave someone into your lineup in the crucible of a playoff series.
That's definitely a fair point, Jack. That 2022 version of Evander Kane was scoring at a goal per game pace in the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs, but a man who has been scoring just about every night right now, Leon Draisaitl, 44 goals on the campaign, Jack. 8 more than William Nylander. Is he the favorite for the Hart Trophy? I know Connor Hellebuck might have something to say with that, as well as Nathan MacKinnon, but Leon Draisaitl has proven time and time again that he can put this team on his back.
Yeah, I don't think he's a favorite for the Hart Trophy. I think he's certainly one of the three
In the conversation,
favorites.
absolutely.
Well, more than just in the conversation. I think it's three guys, quite frankly. I think McKinnon, Draisaitl, and Hellebuck, all in their own way, have certainly a claim to the Hart Trophy. What's more intriguing to me is does he have a shot at the Sergei Fedorov daily double of winning the Hart and the Selke, something that, quite frankly, I never thought we'd see again. And I think this season is probably as close as you're going to ever see a guy to win both awards. Now, he might not win either, but I think he deserves some serious consideration. He has been unquestionably the best player for the Edmonton Oilers and unquestionably one of the top three players in the league this year. And I think anyone who wants to leave him outside the top five in the world, and I'm going to put, Cale Makar, as a clear number 4 in that mix, I think you're just reaching. I mean, he's surpassed some of the other quote-unquote contenders for that position. I don't want to hear the Austin Matthews. I think Leon Draisaitl has established himself as no worse, Bob, on any given day than the third best player in the world.
Yeah, it's funny how the whole narrative has changed. Remember, you used to be a power play merchant and all that, and if you take a look at what he's accomplished 5v5 this year, let's just say it like it is. The Oilers made a couple bets in the offseason to support specifically Leon Draisaitl in the top 6, and to date, those bets have not panned out in terms of the offensive contributions they were looking for. But Draisaitl, regardless of who he has played with, has not just literally driven the bus offensively for the team, but has been able to score. Yeah. And it's frankly, it's kind of remarkable. Like, right now, at least going into after the game on Saturday night, he was leading the NHL in goals. He was leading the NHL in even strength goals. I don't know. I didn't look this morning, but he was leading the league in power play goals, and he was leading the league in game-winning goals. And he hasn't played a lot with Nugent Hopkins and Hyman, who we'd consider the two best wingers on the team. So,
and you were about to say he's not a power play merchant, but he's still tied for the league in power play goals.
I know, but it's the even strength play. And you mentioned that's the biggest thing, is just how much better of a job he's done as a two-way player. And nobody would be happier for him than Connor McDavid. And Leon's the first one to know, like, Connor's got more game to give. Like, he's had, and Connor's played a lot. He was unbelievable in, stretches at the Four Nations face-off. But all that being said, we know Connor's probably got a little bit more game to give here too. Yeah. That bodes well. One of the things that concerned me on the road trip, and why I brought up the fact that I think the Oilers need a little bit of size, is I thought that Connor and Leon, they're not going to take any crap out there. They had to do a little bit too much of it themselves.
Well, Draisaitl had to take a couple of penalties, and honestly, Edmonton doesn't want that. Even in the late games, they don't want him getting caught up and having to stick up for himself.
So I wonder whether or not there will be an addition or two made that just changes the makeup on the team a little bit. Because you can't have Corey Perry at 39 being the only guy that brings physicality in the bottom 6.
If Evander Kane comes back, do you want him jumping in and immediately fighting guys? Again, he's still a guy that's damaged from that injury in Tampa. And I know he's rehabbed, and he'll tell you that that's not going to be an excuse, and I understand that. But he's going to want to find his game first, his hands in and around the net, not his hands in hand-to-hand combat defending his teammates.
Totally. And when it comes to Leon Draisaitl, well, he's riding a hot wave right now. 9 goals, 7 assists during an 11-game point streak. Remember, he had a 14-game point streak earlier on this season as well. Very quickly, Jack, as the Oilers welcome in Anaheim, Montreal, and Dallas, what are some of the implications here for the Oilers this week?
Well, it's not just this week, but it's down the stretch. Their last 22 games, you mentioned Dallas. They've got Dallas twice. They've got Winnipeg twice. They've got Jersey and Vegas. Outside of that, they're going to be a significant betting favorite in the remaining 22 games. So that's 16 out of 22. And of the other 6, they're probably going to be a betting favorite in 3 of those 6. This is, again, a stretch where Edmonton needs to do what they've done the last 3 or 4 years, and that's clean up. And just the way their schedule has been set up, they've mopped the floor with the also-rans in the Pacific Division, and they have gone on massive runs to catapult themselves into the playoffs, feeling good about their game. I would say this. Bob was talking, and rightfully so, on the bus. I don't know whether they can get to 50 wins. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, they better get to 50. And here's why I'd say that. Because if they don't get to 50, they're not going to have that positive vibe heading into the playoffs. And I know this is a veteran club that's capable of flipping a switch and certainly will be a dangerous out no matter whom they play and no matter how many of the final 22 they're able to build upon. But I do think it's been important what they've done down the stretch the last 3 regular seasons in terms of piling up the wins. I do think it's allowed them to go into the playoffs with a great deal of confidence, and I do think that's still important even with a veteran older hockey club.
And a very proud hockey club.
Yeah, 49, 50, 49 wins the last 3 years. So they need 15 in their final 22. It's doable, but they got to play better than they did at the start of the road trip. I do like how they played the final 2 games against Florida and Carolina. I'm hoping that's a continuing theme. If it is, I think they'll be fine.
All right, well, the Edmonton Oilers have 22 games left on the schedule, currently sitting second in the Pacific Division, 4 points back of the Vegas Golden Knights. Down the stretch we go, as Jack Michaels would say. Here we